My name is Cynthia Campbell, and I'm the author of the foundational essay for the Christian practice, Comfort Those Who Mourn. I retired in 2020 as pastor of the Highland Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. I've also served congregations in Salina, Kansas, and various places in Texas. I'm also the President Emerita of McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago, where I also taught theology. It's been my privilege to walk with a number of people through various kinds of loss and transition in their lives. And I was especially pleased to be asked to write this particular practice. I hope that it proves a time of growth and deeper Christian practice for you and your group as well. Finally, in this journey, we share God's promises. We not only receive them into ourselves, but we are emboldened to speak the promise of God. Sometimes I find that I speak those words in order to remind myself as well as others. And on the times when I myself cannot believe or receive, hearing those words when we say them together in community are the things that sustain me until the next time. If it's important in the beginning of the process to show up and sometimes shut up and just be there with someone in pain, there are also times when it is right for us to express the promises of God. Often at a time of death, this is the purpose of a funeral service, a witness to the resurrection, a witness to the truth that is at the heart of our faith, which is this: God is with us always. And there is nothing in life or in death that can separate us from God's love in Christ Jesus. And the other truth, that death is never the end. Death will not have the last words. Love wins, always. That's the meaning of Christ's resurrection and the promise of our own. Those truths that we experience and we find deeply embedded in our scriptures were not born in the abstract. They were born out of real experience. The real experience of the disciples who knew the trauma of Jesus' death, his horrific execution. And then this astonishing experience that he was alive and present to them, reinterpreting their trauma, emboldening them for something new. We see this all across the writings of Paul. One of my favorite passages in all of Paul's writings comes from his letter to the Philippians. Paul is writing from prison. He does not yet know whether this imprisonment is the one that will lead to his death or not. But he is writing back to a community, the church in Philippi, to whom he is very close, and for whom he cares deeply. He knows that they are very anxious about him and the fact that he is in prison and that his fate is unknown, uncertain. But he writes to them, "Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, with prayer and supplication, give thanks to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your hearts and minds Paul's words exactly in Greek are, will stand guard. The peace of God will stand guard over your heart and mind. It's an allusion, I think, to the fact that just outside Paul's room, there is a Roman soldier standing guard. But Paul knows that what really stands guard for him is God, whose love, whose power is stronger than death. This is the word that we as church are to speak not only to one another individually at time of loss, but this is our witness in the public sphere, in a broken and fearful world, in a world coming apart in so many ways, in a world plagued by injustice and violence. It is our task to name those things and to speak an alternative word, to be clear that this is not what God wills for us, for all creation. Rather, we are to bear witness by our presence, by our words, and our actions, that God has a different idea about human life, that injustice will one day be put down, and that death will be no more. We witness by what we say, by what we do, by how we care for one another and for the world around us. We comfort one another with the truth, with the words, with the hope that comes from Jesus Christ.